Hello. Hi.
Hi, pleasure.
Nice to meet you too. Hi, Paulette. I'm so excited to meet you. There's so many things I want to talk to you about. So I'll let you go ahead and introduce yourself and tell our audience what you do.
Absolutely. I'm just going to move my mic a little bit closer. Well, my name is Paulette Rigo. I am originally from Boston. I lived in Belize for 3 years and now relocated to Atlanta, Georgia. Many years ago, about 12 to be exact, I was reminiscing for a moment. I went through an 8.5 year fully litigated divorce trial that went all the way to the Massachusetts Supreme Court. It was a 12-day trial that took place over 9 months. I was so naive, I thought if you had a trial that lasted 12 days, it would be Monday through Friday, and Monday, Tuesday. Well, that's just not the way it is. And then after that, there was a 4-year Massachusetts Supreme Appellate Court process. And that experience literally derailed my life and changed every aspect of what I was doing, who I was, every cell in my body, and really the work that I do now. Only 3% of divorce cases go to a litigated trial, which is, a very small percentage.
Yeah.
And then of that 3%, only 1% go to the appellant process. So you're looking at her. I am the 1%. And I didn't have a clue what I was getting involved in. It was really not something I ever dreamed or envisioned I would be a part of. And that experience really propelled me into forming what I have named Better Divorce Academy. And I call it that because there's so much to learn. You really have to get schooled. I hate that term, but in everything. And a very large percentage of women are just in the dark, whether they themselves are the one that wants the divorce and is contemplating and looking to make that decision herself, or she's the recipient of that uncomfortable, painful conversation of we need to talk, and it's the husband or the spouse's doing. So I am the founder of Better Divorce Academy and author of Better Divorce Blueprint, which literally is coming out next week. So that's exciting. Great timing, Tressa. Thank you for the invitation and for reaching out to me and asking me to be a guest expert in your divorce boot camp. I'm really honored and thrilled that you found me.
I am too. Divine timing. I believe in that. So yeah, when I was going through my divorce, I was frustrated several times that there was so many things my attorney couldn't help me with. And I didn't know anything about divorce coaches. Not until I decided to start this boot camp. So where were you and why couldn't I find you when I needed you?
That's really interesting that you just said that because naturally I've been sharing with people about the book, being released next week. And
I'm
one woman just said,
I really want women to know that, there's resources. So my question was kind of rhetorical, like how do we find divorce coaches? And yes, how do we do it better?
well, and I'm saying, the interesting thing is that, you just said that, and my goodness, all I can say is, where was I 12 years ago when I was starting it? So many women say to me, I needed this book 5 years ago. I needed you 8 years ago. I needed you 2 years ago. I needed me 12 years ago. I was one of those very naive women. In fact, I remember when I finally, did engage in a decision to hire an attorney to represent me, he started talking all this lawyer speak that I was learning, right? And you do really have to get your PhD in divorce, and trust me, I have it. And he started using a lot of Latin. And, I took some Latin in high school, but not a ton. And I remember him saying, oh, we have an affidavit. And I said, wait, who's David? I don't know a David. And that's how green I was. I didn't know that it was affidavit and it was Latin. I thought there was some man named David that was going to walk in and start, I don't know, sprinkling magic dust on the situation and enlighten me about what was going to happen next. And that was nothing of the kind.
So how, there's a lot of stuff like that. So how does a divorce coach help people? What are some of the things, because women want to know, there's all this stuff. Who gets the house? What about the kids? What about the money? What about my retirement?
Exactly. Beautiful question. And I can't get asked that enough. In fact, I don't think enough people ask me. So just to give an overview of the divorce process, there are many different aspects of it. So on one hand, you have the legal, financial, residential, as in the marital property or home, and even the mortgage piece with the lending aspect of it. So you get the very black and white, pragmatic, procedural, filling out the paperwork, getting your facts in order, being organized, understanding the logistics of the journey. So again, that legal, financial, residential, mortgage aspect of it. But on the other hand, there's the emotional, mental, psychological, and parenting aspect. If there are children involved, whether they're 2 or 20, there's still many decisions that need to be made with the emotional aspect of that and the complexity and complication of co-parenting or even parallel parenting when both parents do not think or congruently about parenting, which happens even in the best of marriages. But then you also get the spiritual aspect of it, where you feel like your spirit is broken and there's so many emotions to consider. I tend to be that unicorn of a divorce consultant and a certified divorce coach, because not only have I endured it myself, but I also have a very diverse background in both of those, shall we say, different worlds. Normally, the emotional part of the divorce journey, the GALs, the parenting coordinators, the therapists, don't necessarily know the lawyer speak and the financial speak of the other world. And those two worlds don't typically talk or collide. And it takes someone like a certified divorce coach and someone like myself that's had that experience, that's able to understand every different spoke of the wheel, every aspect of the journey, educate the client. So what I do is I'm a thinking partner. I'm a cheerleader. I'm a hand holder. I'm a walk through the fire, if that's a word. I am that advocate, support, education, resource, guide, and that tireless, unconditional expert that's able to answer your questions, help you make better decisions, not throw in the towel, not overreact or underreact. There, tends to be those two polar opposites of the worlds of, I'll do or say or sign anything just to be done with this, or my way, the highway, with like digging in their heels. So as far as the role that I play, I am also a credentialed mediator. So because I've had extensive background in mediation, I'm also helped to see a resolution and a settlement and an agreement much more clearly, or shall we say efficiently, than somebody that doesn't quite have the personal experience and professional experience and all the other aspects of the divorce journey. So my role is multiple. It starts with that initial consultation, that assessment, where you are in the journey. Are you contemplating divorce? Answering your questions, helping you build the right team of professionals that you may or may not need, help you save money, get through it quicker, smoother, and a little bit easier, and make better decisions. And then once the divorce is over, sometimes that's quick, sometimes it's not, whether you're collaborating, arbitrating, litigating, or mediating, it's helping you pick up the pieces of your life again, deciding if you should change your name, your finances in order, really understanding what that looks like and who to help you with that. And dating again. What does dating in the digital world look like? Safely, smartly. It's a scary world out there to kind of jump back in the, the pool. There's so many things to take into consideration. And it's very important that you take your time and do it wisely. So that's basically my role as a coach and a mediator. Of course, I just summarized it. There's so many different aspects of it, but overall, that's that's what I do.
Yeah, specifically you said like that hand holding, and that's something you don't get from an attorney. They don't, you can't call them up in the middle of the night and say, but I want to keep my house, or,
Yeah.
he's turning the kids against me. Those are the things where a coach can help you.
Yes. You can, most of the time what happens is people will say, well, I have an attorney, or do I need an attorney? Because there's a lot of questions, right? So much confusion. But then there's also, well, I have a therapist, a counselor, a social worker, or whatever, this particular fancy letters after the name of the person. But a lot of people will go to those experts and they end up asking legal advice, and they're just not prepared or knowledgeable about that aspect of what divorce looks like. And on the other hand, Tressa, so many people use their lawyer as a therapist, and then they get the $4,000 or $5,000 bill, and they go, "Holy, fill in the blank." It's detrimental. You never want to use your attorney in any way, whether it be for wills, mortgages, estates, divorce, as a therapist. Yes, they do counsel you in a way about the laws and your rights and perhaps options that you have. But when it gets to the psychological, emotional, mental, even sexual, physical, spiritual aspects of what marriage entails and parenting, it's just not their wheelhouse. And many of them are precious souls. Some of my best friends are attorneys, but they're the first to admit, Paulette, listen, this just isn't my expertise. And on the other hand, it wouldn't be fair of a parenting coordinator or a therapist to start giving you financial legal advice either. I just happen to be that person that can pull out my Rolodex, dare I use an old fashioned term, but of knowing if I don't know the answer, I know someone that does, and I will make damn sure that you get an accurate, supportive answer so that you have your options, because regret is a horrible thing. And if you don't know that you have options, you can't make a smart decision.
No, you can't. And, having as a coach, being able to give people resources, that is really the key, is being able to, sit back and take that look at things and give people that, that key. So you touched a little bit on dating and getting back into the game of life. That's what my boot camp's about. And so how can we transition? How can we go through our divorce with our head in our heart still somewhat intact? To move on to our lives.
Yeah, there's a beautiful quote by Eleanor Roosevelt, dwell in right? And a lot of people, men and women, even families, culturally and religiously, and just how we grew up, we've been kind of taught that divorce looks and feels like a failure. And in many ways, anytime something ends, we assume that we were bad at it, right? That we weren't experts. We didn't know what we were doing, and we were, failed at it. And I just want everyone to know that is a lie. That is not true. I'm not pro-divorce by any means. I'm not pro-litigation. And I've saved a lot of marriages, I'm proud to say. I do my best to make sure that, the relationship hasn't just given up. But, there are many, many, many cases. By the way, 2.4 million divorces last year. That's up 43%. That's a divorce every 13 seconds. And 70% of divorce is filed by women. So, hey, and the 30% of divorces that are not, those are really, the women that are mostly feeling like, oh no, how do I reinvent myself and the failure? But whether you're the one that said it's my decision or it's his or your partner's, it starts with redefining yourself. And who do you really want to be? It is an opportunity to redefine, readdress, reinvent. You can put any other word after the prefix re, and it will work.
I love
It's an
it.
opportunity to really look at your overall goals and what it is that you have sort of, shall we say, pushed aside because you've been a partner. And now it's really your opportunity to step off the spinning wheel of overthinking, reconnect and reevaluate to yourself, not from a selfish point of view, but one of really extreme self care and exploring all of your possibilities. And that starts with making room for the new. That may be decluttering, evaluating relationships, your space, your apartment, your home, your car, your job, your life, your diet, we could make a long list, Tressa, of things that we might need to make room for, and slowing down enough to evaluate what in your life is working that you want to hold on to and hold sacred, and sort of create boundaries around, and what's ready to exfoliate and just release. We talk a little bit about dating, adventures in freedom. What does that look like? No longer having to answer to somebody anymore, and knowing really that the future is yours. Knowing yourself inside, outside, right, left, up and down, around, under, over is exactly what post-divorce is like. Financially, changing your name, goal setting, understanding that love is possible, new love is possible if you do it smart and wisely, and really acknowledging the need for healing. And what many people ignore is celebrating successes, even the little tiny baby wins of maybe repainting your bedroom, or having a garage sale, or going on a weekend away with some girlfriends. I could give you hundreds of examples, but there are no mistakes, only lessons. It all starts with you. You can do it. How do I know? I've done it with not only myself, and I'm joyfully, blissfully remarried. It is totally possible, ladies. Do not give up. And there's something really beautiful in being single. It should be empowering and inspiring to be able to own what you want and think of it as a blank canvas, and being able to decide if it's a watercolor, if it's an oil. And I'm not much of a painter, but here's my analogy. And just start messing with it. Be creative, travel, explore, journal, write, speak, explore everything in your life you've ever wanted to do. There's going to be sad days.
In who you are, because you
Yeah.
lost so much of yourself in a marriage that lasted 25, 30 years. So really building yourself up again. I just love that, painting your room, something small like that can really make a huge difference in building your new
Yes.
life.
There's nothing more inspiring than seeing someone come to me with the deer in the headlight look of overwhelm and fear and stress, and not to be, overly dramatic, but I'm sure I could add a few more: anger and resentment and just everything, guilt, and seeing the transformation of just it's like, as soon as you write your divorce story too, it started because I was a birth doula and I would have clients write their birth story, but I love to have clients or anyone write their divorce story. And as soon as they write it and read it and say it, even if it's just to themselves on their voice memo, it's like erasing 10 years off their face. The weight and the posture and the standing up tall and belly in, pelvic floor lifted, shoulders back, deeper breathing, just feeling like, getting that off their shoulders. There's a lot to be said about taking your time to do the due diligence. We do the due diligence on the front end, usually, hopefully, but we don't always do it on the back end. We just think, okay, I'm divorced, done. I've got my fancy paper, ink is dried, I's are dotted, T's are crossed, I'm done. Really, ladies, that's just when the work starts. You have a responsibility to yourself to prioritize your healing and your self-study, because if you don't, chances are pretty darn good that unfortunately you're going to make a few mistakes moving forward that perhaps you could have avoided. And you don't want to repeat, nothing worse than repeating the past.
No, there's not. And when you get to work on yourself, then you get to really find what those gifts are that maybe you just put aside, and a lot of magic can happen right there, I believe. And so
Yes.
something I've been thinking about is um, with divorce coaches, because I really didn't know that there was a lot of divorce coaches out there. And I'm going to go get my certification as soon as we're done. But I'm just, I might. But yeah, it's interesting. But maybe this new face of divorce, instead of it being such a taboo thing or a failure, like you said, now it could be something that could be looked at as it's just part of life. I mean, this just is one of those things that has to be dealt with, like a death in the family or, something along those lines. But what do you think the percentages of successful, if I can say successful uncoupling could be?
Oh,
You know,
well,
opposed to
right
all the
now,
bad cases.
I don't have the latest statistics on that, although I am putting together some surveys and polls with my client base because I do want to start to change the outcome, the trajectory, the process. And you use that word stigma. There's a lot of, labels assigned to in the past to divorce. If you think about the history of divorce in the United States, I don't want to go back millennials of, other cultures, but the very first divorce in the United States was in 1535 with Mr. and Mrs. Clark in Boston, Massachusetts, of all places. And she was only allowed to be given a divorce because her husband abandoned her. And this was in the 1500s, when the pilgrims came over, and you can imagine there she was on the farm with I don't know, probably 8 or 10 children. And the husband just, I don't know, disappeared. So she had to go to the courts, which was, I'm sure, a grass hut with a thatch roof, and go to the attorney or who are they called? The governor, right, at the time, who was probably an attorney, and grant permission for divorce. So we've come a long way, baby, but women were not even allowed to be granted divorce because we were considered property. Well, fast forward 480 years to the day, here we are in May 29th, 2021. Whether you're the plaintiff, I wanted to put that into perspective because I think it's important. Yes. Sometimes we just think that we're not making progress, but we have. Now 480 years later, there's still a stigma, unfortunately. It isn't the scarlet letter where you had to wear a adulteress or divorcee on your forehead, or whatever the stigma is of divorce. And that could be for either states, but I am putting together some numbers. But to go back to numbers, I believe that the work that I'm doing and the work that other trailblazing, paradigm breaking coaches, and not all are female, but I would like to think from my experience, probably 90 are, we are making a significant difference because more people are understanding now that you don't automatically file for divorce, hire a lawyer, file for divorce, go to have the judge make the decision, pay thousands of dollars, if not more, and destroy your family. End of story. The conversation is changing. I am proud and honored to be part of that mission, and I work hard at it all the time, whether I am talking to a young couple who have been married 2 years and are arguing over a toothbrush and a pair of jeans, and there's really not much to talk about. They're the first to say, we just want to be able to get through this divorce with dignity, spend as little amount as we can so that we can just not hate each other and start over. Or you've been married 38 years and you've got children, stepchildren, half children, grandchildren, businesses, entities, properties, investment trust funds, et cetera, et cetera. Those are two extremes, I know, but they do exist. I have clients in both opposite ends of the spectrum and everything in between. But the reason I put this out is so that everyone listening, whether it be on the live call or recorded, it is vital that you understand that the process is what you created. It is your marriage and it is your divorce. You're the one that's in the car, putting the address in the GPS, holding the steering wheel, and deciding how and when and where you're going. Do not allow a professional make the decisions for you. So I do advise working with a divorce consultant and a coach, just as you would if you were training for a marathon or wanting to embark on any difficult journey. You would find somebody who's been there and done it and understands the pitfalls and all the perks and how to have you avoid all the mistakes, the expensive ones as far as money, but also the finances long term, because so many women cannot afford a home because the divorce decree was not written properly. They don't get alimony or child support to be eligible for a mortgage. And it's a big problem. So I know all these, and I could probably name 1,000 more problems with the way divorce decrees are written. They have to be written properly to set both spouses up for success, the children up for success, so that everyone can thrive instead of hating each other. It is growing. I'm hoping that it's instead of 10%, it's growing to 25 and then 50%. Will it ultimately ever be that 100% of cases are mediated? Probably no, because it takes two to tango. And if you don't have a partner that is not willing and open-minded enough to embark on having a conversation that's honest, genuine, transparent, authentic, and is not willing to disclose and fill out all the paperwork for discovery, AKA the financial statements, both parties are required by law in all 50 states and Canada and UK and Australia. And I don't mean to list other countries, but it isn't just a local phenomenon in California or in Georgia, where I am. Ladies, all 50 states, both parties are required to come to the table in good faith to have the conversation about how we can resolve the marriage or dissolve the marriage in 4 categories. Custody, if you don't have children, easy, although unless you have dogs, and some people are more attached to their dogs than children, a little dog humor there. Child support, what does that look like? And then spousal support, AKA alimony. Some people still call it that, some people don't. I don't know that the term is ever going away. And then lastly, division of marital assets. Each state has their bylaws and rules. Processes. It's typically the equitable division of marital assets. That doesn't always mean equal, meaning if there's a piece of pizza, you don't just split it down the middle. Sometimes it's, and that's where we have the room for negotiation and what's in the best interest of the ability for people to create more income, their education, their age, their station of life, their employment history, et cetera, et cetera. So we have to look at all those other entities to be able to move forward. I also see a very large percentage of couples creating prenuptial agreements and postnuptial agreements. That means that any agreement that's written before you walk down the aisle, or it's written after you walk down the aisle, it doesn't mean that you're divorced or you're thinking of divorce. They both stand up in court normally if both parties are of sound mind and body. So I do recommend, even if you're in a marriage that's looking like it may go south, I recommend consulting with someone like myself or an attorney to discuss how you could write a postnuptial agreement so that if you were to get divorced, how could you do it in a mediated situation without the judge being the one to make the decision and costing you a ton of money. Prenups and postnups can be written for somewhere between $2,000 to $3,000. Not cheap, but they're worth their weight in gold if you can avoid everything else. And if both parties are willing to split it, then, well, that makes it so much more affordable. Every attorney is different. So it is inspiring to see the numbers change. And I'm hoping that pattern will continue to grow.
Yeah, so do I. You've mentioned so many things that I was like, oh, wow. Yeah, I've learned a couple things here. So I didn't know that you were required to show all your financials.
Yes,
that's a good point.
Yeah, and it is true. So when there's a word in the divorcing process called the petition to file. So one or both of the parties has to petition. And unfortunately, one is called the plaintiff and one is called the defendant. I really think, Tressa, that should change. Yeah. Why we have to be called a plaintiff and a defendant is already setting yourself up for an adversarial relationship. Why we can't call them party A and B, or I don't know, we could come up with two other terms, but whatever. When someone is the plaintiff, they're the one that has petitioned, right? And then the other person is the defendant and has typically 20 to 40 days, sometimes 20, sometimes 30, sometimes 40, depending on the state, to respond to the petition. And this is where the, oh my God, comes in. My husband just asked for a divorce and I have to respond. Now, do you need to go to an attorney to respond? No, but most people do because they're freaking out, as they rightfully should. It's scary. But if you came to someone like me and said, the marriage is not working. We've tried therapy for 3 years. We're both sad or angry or whatever, but we really want to have a conversation about what divorce might look like and how we could actually get through this and not end up hating each other and still be able to either co-parent or co-grandparent and maybe even see each other occasionally for a family event. I would sit down with both of them, talk about the issues that they both agree on, and then the things that they don't agree on, and making sure that they understand that if they were to, that's okay. If they were to file, what the procedures were so they could get through it quicker.
While I have you here, go ahead and thank you. I could go on for hours with you. This is great. This is asking me to stop the video. Why don't you go ahead and tell us what you brought for our audience today?
Oh, yes. I would love to give anybody on the audience that is here a digital free copy of my book, Better Divorce Blueprint.
That's what this is telling me, is to do the gift.
This is the workbook. It's 198 pages and there's a 307-page book. So I will give Tressa the links for that and everybody will get a free copy of the book and the workbook.
Yeah, the links will be in the chat. Thank you so much. This was great and very informative. And I think that we have a lot to think about and we should. It's not, it's a one fix kind of thing. So, no. All right. Thank you so much. And I'm going to come visit you on Clubhouse. I love Clubhouse. My new happy place.
I would love it. Such an honor. Thank you, everyone. Have a great Memorial Day weekend and such an honor to be here.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Right, bye. I couldn't see what that said.